Thinking of selling your home? In this video, we're going to share with you the 3 items you need to focus on in terms of your closing costs. Coming up. Hi, this is Kai with the Kai Wong Team, helping you better understand everything you need to know about New York City real estate. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Tim Allomong from Allomong Associates. How are you doing today, Tim?
Great, Kai. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, sellers, they want to sell the property and get the most out of it, right?
Right.
A lot of them, they don't understand what's actually in the closing cost itself. Can you share with us today? What are the 3 main things for closing costs? What's number 1?
Sure. Number 1, I always tell sellers is to recognize that there are universal closing costs that will apply to your transaction, regardless of whether it's a co-op, a condo, or a single or multi-family home.
So what are some of the universal fees that all sellers pay, no matter the type of property they're selling?
So you're going to have your real estate broker's fees, your attorney's fees, and your transfer taxes. Sellers in New York State will expect to pay a New York State transfer tax. That's 0.4% of the purchase price. Sellers in New York City will also pay a New York City transfer tax, which on purchases over $500,000 is going to be 1.425% of the purchase price.
Got it. And with the average price closer to $1 million in New York City, you're definitely going to be over that amount.
Of course. But if your purchase price is under $500,000, then you're only paying 1%. After you compute your transfer taxes, you should also be aware if you're a non-resident of New York State. In other words, you have not had a New York State domicile in 2 out of the last 5 years, then you'll be subject to an additional capital gains tax from New York.
Got it.
That tax is 8.882%.
Wow, so everything adds up.
It really does. And on top of that, if you're also not a U.S. citizen, for example, if you're a foreign national, you'll be subject to the FIRPTA. The FIRPTA is not a tax, it's a withholding of 15% on individuals selling real property. And this is going to be applicable even if you're losing money on the deal, right? So if you're losing money on the deal, I will tell you, as I tell all my clients, is to apply for a predetermination withholding with the IRS. In other words, that allows you to make an agreement with the IRS for them to either reduce the amount of your withholding from 15% to something lower, or say that you don't owe any withholding because you're not expected to have an income tax next year.
Got it. Okay. What's number 2?
Sure. So the second thing to be aware of is if you're selling a condo or a single or multifamily house, then your closing costs are going to be a little bit different than if you're selling a co-op.
Of course.
Right? So you're always going to have your universal closing cost. And for sellers of condos, you're going to have a board waiver application fee, which can be up to $1,500, and that's the application to the condominium for them to issue what's called the right of first refusal waiver.
So what's the 3rd item that the seller should know in terms of closing costs?
So the 3rd item is reserved for sellers of co-ops. All right, so co-op, you're selling your individual shares in a proprietary lease to your unit. The board of directors in a co-op building usually has a lot more power over the transfer, and a lot of buildings in New York especially have what's called a flip tax.
Yes.
Which varies by building, and it generally ranges between 1% and 4% of the purchase price, but oftentimes there's a formula that the building has put together. So that way, if you are a longer term shareholder, then the flip tax starts to go down.
Yeah, flip tax for co-ops are all over the place. Some the seller pays it, some the buyers pay it, and some there are none. So it just really differs from co-op to co-op. Thank you so much for sharing the 3 tips for sellers. It's very important for them to know because a lot of them walking in thinking they're going to get a lot more money than they would have. So it's nice for them to pre-plan what they're going to do with those funds afterwards.
Right, and another thing I tell sellers all the time is it's never a bad idea to ask your attorney when you're interviewing them for an estimated closing statement.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here today.
Sure, thank you.
And thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you found it informational. If there's a topic you want us to discuss in a future video, please leave it in the comment below. If it's your first time here, consider subscribing. On this channel, we share with you buying, selling tips, market updates, and neighborhood guides. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.